Hey there. Oops,
Hello.
you can't see me. There we go.
There he is.
How you both doing?
Oh, hanging tough.
That's good. A nice day out.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't get a chance to look at the spreadsheet yet that you sent, so I apologize.
Well, it'll be part of the explanation of my meeting with John, so if I could share screen and talk
Great.
through it.
Oh, cool. And there is Nate. Hey there. The gang's all here.
Yeah.
Small but mighty.
Are there any public present anywhere?
No public person.
Okay.
Isaac, you taking minutes this time?
I thought so. Is that right?
Oh,
Or yeah.
I'm gonna assume, and I forget who's next. I can look it up, but let's figure it out.
It would be me.
Thank you, Gail.
So, which reminds me, we have 2 sets of minutes to approve tonight. Yeah. Okay.
Yep, it's on the agenda and I will not forget, I promise. So I'll call us to order at 5:02. So it does not look like we have any public, so I'm guessing we don't have any public comments as a result. So we could jump in. So we got a few continued items. We got the PV vendor outreach. There's the CCA status from the select board. There's electric chargers and then the non-fossil fuel purchasing protocol. So we can take those in order, but so Gail, do you want to go first on the
Okay.
PV vendor stuff?
Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. So this is data that I got from Mass Energy Insight, just to try to figure out what's our target for total net usage. If we want to get to net zero, what are we hoping to accomplish? And the total is 259,302. That was last year. So a few things about this. Town hall and the fire department both are net metered, which means that their solar installation is already accounted for in their use. Right? So this is a net use.
Say that again.
Both town hall and fire department have installed solar, right? But they are net metered. So their use already includes what they've achieved through their solar installation. Which means that we have to add to whatever this is to get to net zero. We're still dealing with this net number of usage to get to.
So SES is the big one, obviously.
Yeah. So the way I've done this calculation down here, this is the way I do my spreadsheet. So the red means this is a number you plug in. So if we wanted to look only at 275, then you get the readout. But if we want to cast ahead, seeing the future increase, if we talk about 300 as a big round number, that means we're looking at 34 kilowatt, and we have only this much so far. So what does 34 kilowatt looks like? So I had a meeting with John Child from PD Squared, and he had sympathy for us right off the bat. He said Shutesbury is difficult to deal with. You have land for ground mounted, you have roofs. And in roofs, you got old buildings, and in ground, you got wetlands. So there are constraints on either siting, whichever way you go. So he pulled up the Google aerial map of Shutesbury and looked, for instance, at the roof of the highway department, which is big enough to give us, oh, what he figured roughly maybe 20 kilowatts, which would get us. So he said, right, yes, it's possible, but it's going to take a combination of different things to get it done. But then you have to talk about what is the status of that roof? What are the town's plans for that building? Is it going to get demolished in X years? You're talking about putting a structure that's going to last for 20 years on a roof that's already how old? So there are all kinds of complicating things, even talking about roof. And he said, go talk to your building committee, see what the plans are, if there are plans, and if not, what is the status of that roof? Is it able to hold even the weight? Simply structural things. And he, as PV Squared, is not in a position to give us structural analysis. There are companies out there that will do that for big bucks, which is why he pointed us to our building committee. They should know at least the history of that building and its weak points and strong points and capabilities. So talking about ground mounted, it seems like so obvious. Well, just add more to that behind the fire department. Well, that's wetlands. Well, then how about down behind town hall? Well, who knows what that's going to be? Could it be a bunch more put up right behind the big standing ones that are in place? That's a possibility. Oh, and he pointed out that what they do now is not the big pillar installations like we have behind town hall, but more like the ones that you see fields of, the lower to the ground, easier installation, much easier. They don't allow the tilt angle, but I don't know if the tilt angle has even been followed up behind town hall anymore. Anyway, it was such a horrendous job. So there are those kinds of things to consider. And there again, what are the plans for that space behind town hall? If the wetlands around the new library preclude putting in the public garden, the community garden there, where would they go? Would that be part of land use plans for the behind town hall? So it's not just so easy as to figure out what's a square roof area to deal with, what's ground deal to deal with. I wish us lots of luck. It's possible, but it's going to take a lot of homework and cooperation with town organizations, which is a good thing. I mean, it should be a town project, not just a committee project. And it gives our building committee and the planning board chances to weigh in.
Did he say anything about, I mean, SES is compromised as well, because like the back fields get used.
There is
and
no
don't
way you
want-
can do anything on SES. The roof is not capable of supporting a mere weight. It's heavily shaded. The trees that shade it are not on school property. And there is very, very little chance that the school is going to want to have standing solar installations anywhere where the kids are. So
Right.
yeah, the school's out.
Well, this is good information. It's depressing, but it's good.
We might make up a bunch of questions or proposals or things to investigate and take them to the planning board and the building committee. And in terms of overall town planning and future planning, what are land use assessments and what are building assessments? And here's our need. Here's our intended use.
Nate, you got a question or a point, I think.
I mean,
And Isaac, I'm
Yeah.
sorry I muted you. It was usually clicking away, so I apologize.
yeah, I mean, just to reinforce Gail's point, I mean, one of the keys to this is planning ahead, right? So uh, when things are anticipated to be replaced, it's good to start, thinking now about, leveraging that opportunity to add solar where it makes sense. And it's exciting that the highway department building has that kind of potential in the future. And this is super helpful information. Another sort of path is to acquire this electricity from renewable sources, right? Which is something that we've laid the groundwork for. So I think generating it ourselves on these municipal buildings is um, is excellent from a resilience point of view, where the opportunities arise, but there it may in some cases, like with the school's use, make the most sense to see about acquiring the electricity that we use there from some solar or renewable installation that's maybe not located within the town boundaries.
A quick question. So based on Gail's, estimate kilowatt requirements, it looks like there's not a huge shortfall from where we're currently at. If I'm doing my math right, it looks like, 7.25 kilowatts, and that's estimating 300,000 kilowatt hour usage annually for all the buildings. So, I mean, possibility of,
Wait, what are you
I'm sorry.
saying?
So you're saying, right, like so it looks like with your information at the bottom, 300,000 kilowatt hour usage equals 34.25 kilowatts.
That we would have to add.
Oh, total that we would have to add. I'm sorry. Okay. All
Yeah.
right. I needed to clarify because I thought that was the total,
Yeah,
not the okay that we would need to
That's
add. I don't
why
know.
my remarks about the school, the town hall and fire department already being included in their use.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so one thing, Gail, number one, thank you for doing this. It's really helpful. It seems like this is something we should probably put on the website, and if you're willing to do like a little, maybe paragraph or two write-up, it seems like sharing this out would be good. Like, I can either imagine giving it to the select board or even with town meeting coming up, like depending on what the time is and if we wanted to just report out or have a handout or something, but that would, I think this, for me, it's really helpful. In terms of options, sort of riffing off what Nate was saying, the other two ways to ponder it in terms of advanced planning, one is leasing land if we wanted to for a long-term lease, like I'm not sure where that would be. I mean, you could, I don't know, like the two places that come to mind, neither of which is optimal, but hypothetically, like Lake Wyola, it's the state, you can convince the state to sort of get some of the land that's there if it's cleared, or like near the AC, but neither makes sense, but I'm just using an example. If there was like a cleared out place where we could lease it as a town, that'd be interesting. And then, on occasion, the town has right of first refusal when land is, getting sold, usually when it's coming out of chapter, which means it's forested. So that's not really a good option, but there might be, I mean, I think that's the other question, is like, if the town wanted, if we could afford it. But it seems like, practically speaking, Nate's idea is probably the best, like if we could find another place that we can get solar from. Yeah,
Something that occurs to me from what you said, Nate, and that is in terms of future planning, when or if would the roof need to be replaced on the highway department building? And if it's in the near foreseeable future, replace the roof with the intent of putting solar on it. Maybe even expanding the roof over beyond the eaves, where it now is, to enlarge the area. You could set the angle. If that were all built in, that's just another.
Absolutely.
There again, is there any agency in town that has done this kind of looking forward to the fate or the status or the fate of current buildings?
I think besides the buildings committee, capital planning, because they're the
Capital
ones who would
planning,
have to.
right.
Yeah. I mean, the only reason the
Right,
planning
yeah, so
board
they
does-
should get drawn into this, yep.
Yeah, I mean, the planning board is really only relevant when we do a master plan, and we have talked about that. I mean, I've talked about it specifically, and Keith Hastings now as well, that if you look at the master plan, which is from 2004, I think it is, 2004, 2008, one of those two, way out of date. It doesn't have anything about climate. And I think what we talked about on the planning board is if we can ever get a breather from all the solar and battery stuff,
Yeah.
that would be the next thing we would like to do. But it's sort of, you got to do community engagement, and you have to get money from the town to sort of have someone to facilitate the process. But that's the logical thing, is to basically just add a chapter to the master plan about climate and energy, expectations and planning and future.
What did you have in mind for a report to town meeting?
Well, so at the beginning, when everyone's floating in and getting settled, there's always the reports. And so not everyone does it, Mary Ann does it frequently. But if we had a printed handout that sort of explains this, and then, if you or one of us wanted to get up and just sort of say, of the things that we've done, that we thought this would be just worth elevating to let people know. And it seems like if we're going to talk to other committees, it's worth, that would be the time to say, this is what we found out. Hopefully, and then, in the next coming year, we'll be able to talk to the building committee and the capital planning committee, but we wanted residents to be aware that we are thinking about this, and there's not
What we're
an
looking
easy
at, yeah.
solution.
I think another possibility to think about, the library, these figures are for the current library, and we don't know what the energy usage is going to look like for the new library. We can only estimate until we get a couple of years data. But I think, what is the issue with the the roof there, and what can we have on there? Yeah.
They've got built-in solar in their plans, and I think if I'm not mistaken, they're hoping to be fully self-sufficient or close to.
Okay.
So that would be basically off our books. That would take care of itself. But that does leave the spare roof there for use, no matter what the use of that building becomes. If it turns into the police department, if it turns into whatever, it's the wrong angle and the wrong size and all that, but it's there. And, we may be able to. Actually, it's very useful. It's interesting to take the Google Eye view, because given the time of day, you can tell from the tree shade and shadow what the exposure is on the various buildings, which is informative.
Yeah. The other thing, this came up at a meeting, a statewide meeting I was at last week or 2 weeks ago, but although I get that you wouldn't want to have ground mounted in the fields near the school, that's the only place where we have a real parking lot. And if we could do a canopy there,
Right.
that could work. It's
Right.
double the price. But
That's another possibility. Yep. But you could get some decent square footage area.
yeah. And perhaps the highway department would appreciate that, because I don't think they like plowing.
That's another point.
So, well, this is cool. So I guess we we'll meet next month before town meeting. So I guess we could just ponder if we want to bring it to town meeting or not. We don't have to make a decision in terms of if we want to do a report or not before then. But do you have a sense, Gail, if you'd be interested, or do you want to pass on it?
I'd be more interested in getting some kind of conversation going with planning board, capital, and building committee.
Okay.
And then we might be able to report as a committee exercise what we have come out, how we're approaching this as a town, as a community problem. And
Right. Okay, so maybe we can, I mean, I think Ellen McKay is still chair of capital planning. I'm not sure who the chair of buildings is, but
yeah, the name just slipped me, but I know it's easy enough to look up.
yeah, why don't we, would you mind like just writing up a paragraph or two, and maybe we can plan something for after town meeting? Because I'm guessing capital planning is going to be busy until town meeting.
Oh, I see. Okay. Toward what?
Just so we can, like, either we go to their meeting or we invite one of them, both, each committee, to come to our next meeting for a brief discussion or something like that. So that we can let them know.
So
what
lay
we-
this out basically to these assembled folks and ask for their thoughts on it.
Correct.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if we go to them, or I mean, if we go to them, we get all of them. It just means that we have to go to two other meetings, whoever wants to go.
Right. We could invite the chairs and ask them to bring anybody else they want along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if we write it up and send it out, I don't know, in the next few weeks or something, we could sort of do it with them in May, at our May meeting.
At our May meeting and have a meeting date in mind at that point. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. That's a good next step.
Action. This committee has action.
Yeah, we're all about that. Well, cool. Why don't we move on? But I think that's great. Thank you, Gail.
Yeah.
So the CCA status from the select board, I would say, is non-action. I sent off the email. I think I reminded them, my guess is that they have their hands full at this point with town meeting, so I wasn't gonna bug them until
Yeah.
after town meeting. But I would have, I mean, I would have hoped that we sort of served it to them on a platter. It was an easy decision to make. So I guess I'll follow up with Becky one more time. I'm just assuming that between now and then, their meetings are gonna be pretty full, but
Where was it left?
we agreed to make the recommendation for, I'm
Oh, right.
spacing on the,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
spacing on the name, the one that serves all the small towns out
Yep.
there. And we sent through, the write-up that Nate did.
Mhm.
And I think we also sent their responses so they could see how they responded.
Right.
And basically the ask was, are we good to go? Can we reach out? The next logical thing is, if we're good to go, then does Nate reach out, which I think would be the case, or Becky could reach out, but
So it has to be on the select board agenda so they can vote on it. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
But if they say yes, then Nate is our contact guy to make the point, right? Yeah.
I think so. I mean, unless they
That's what we
say,
said from the
oh,
beginning.
yeah, so I think it's just a matter of getting the green light, and then we can proceed. So I'll bug Becky again.
Getting it on the agenda is the tough part.
Yes, exactly. And just now that they're doing warrant stuff, it gets a little crazy. So that was a short update. Electric chargers, it looked like from the email that you sent, Gail, that offer is no longer on the table, but then do you want to sort of raise your bigger level question.
Right, so, what I've found, looking at all these vendors, there are costs involved. And depending on if you want super fast charging or slow charging or blah, 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 20 gazillion versions thereof, the costs go up even further. And it made me stop and wonder, wait a minute, we got started on this business in the first place because there was an offer for essentially a cost-free installation. And the question was how many and where. That's not where we are now. So I guess I want to go back to the beginning and say, do we want EV chargers? And if so, why? Who would be the targeted users? Should we be interested in where they get put? And do we care if they're fast chargers, which are megabucks, or slow chargers, which at town buildings? And my first sense is anybody who's going to be at a municipal building in town is somebody in town. If they have an electric vehicle to charge, they're charging at home. So why would they? It's not like we're a commercial venture out there that can use this as a way to draw people in. I guess that's where I'm coming with.
Yeah, usually these chargers are at, locations that are selling something that are bringing people in, and, it's not necessarily for, locals that are, just stopping by to do business.
Right.
So we need a big box store in town before we can have chargers.
Bite your tongue.
We can't even put a solar ground mounted somewhere because it's wetlands. They're not gonna. We'll have a little QB box store.
Well, in my fantasies, I had the whole canopy parking lot at the school with electric chargers on the verticals. Like, oh, okay, relax, Gail.
The teachers would like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you think about it, a lot of the SES teachers don't live in town. I've heard that, the population of the school is a fair amount of students that opt in because they come with their parents to teach, like that are teaching there.
Oh.
So, that is a significant number. I don't have the exact figures.
I have to say it wasn't that way when I was on school committee.
Yeah, so that might be appealing to. We would have to take a census if that was something in your dream scenario would come true. We would take a census of those people with electric vehicles and whether this mythically existing solar charging canopy would have that affixed to them.
The middle school does have the Arms Middle School does have a slow charger there, and I see cars connected to it fairly regularly. So, it might be worth asking the school if there would be a benefit, if they perceived benefit of having one there. A slow charger for sure.
Yeah.
But a charger nonetheless.
And also, who the target population is I think a really good one. Like in terms of resources and effort and things like that, supporting the school staff is a good thing. I think the question is if that's who else would we want to be thinking about if it wasn't at the school? If it's at the school, it's going to be teachers and staff. And Gail, you could walk across the street if you want to do your car, but I think your point is really well taken, that like if you're a town hall, no one's driving to town hall to leave their car there unless they're working in town hall. And even if even if we went back to having in-person meetings for most committees, those are 1 or 2 hours. So a slow charger is not going to really.
And those
are probably
again are going to be town people. And if they have an EV, they've got one in their garage.
Yeah. So it's very interesting.
I sent around an article just because I was doing some research trying to figure out the difference between, and even if the slow charger, it's a different model, right? You're not trying to fill your car up while you're there. You're just trying to top off, you know what I mean? Like, you get 10% while you're there, dropping off your, having a meeting or whatever, and you're not looking to fill up.
That's true.
And we could look at it as a moneymaker in as far as we can set the rate. That seems counterintuitive if we're trying to do this for the benefit of our people in town, but we're doing them favors by charging them more? What?
Well, I think in the prioritization things, I think just, asking the questions you are, it sort of drops in the priority because we don't have an active offer on the table. I mean, it seems like CCA is, if,
It's
people are
live.
really, there's town-wide benefit there and a higher magnitude.
Nate, who would you ask at the school to see if there would be any interest in having?
Probably Principal Mendonça.
Mhm.
Probably yes.
Is that what you call her?
I do. I don't call her Jackie, but yeah, I
It's so formal.
could.
Okay. Do you want to add, I mean, it's an easy email or just see her in the hall or something.
Yeah.
It'd be worth,
Just out
I
of
would-
curiosity, yeah.
yeah, do it in your leisure.
Yep.
Some slow drop-off morning or something.
Sure.
And
Well,
then
and
so-
when we have meetings there,
Absolutely.
Yeah, when we have town meeting, whoever's first ones to show up gets it. So the last thing in the updates is the non-fossil fuel purchasing protocol, which is me, and I've done nothing on it except I still have the note on my desk that I have to do it. So I don't think the select board's missing it, but I haven't dropped it, I just haven't done it. So I will
what
continue
is
to.
it?
It was the whole idea based, Nate brought it forward, it was Amherst's, I think it was Amherst ECAC, right, that initiated it, and the idea was creating procurement guidelines, not
Oh, right,
requirements.
right, okay, thank you, yeah.
And so they were open to the select board was open to the idea, they wanted us to develop a draft, so I was gonna work from Amherst and write something up and bring it to us to look at and then send it to them, but I will just say between the bylaw stuff at planning board and all the associated headaches of being sued, I've been busy. So
Yeah,
I'm making copies of emails from the last 4 years. Quite fun. So now we get to the interesting part of the conversation, which is debriefing from the stretch code meeting and then making a decision about if we want to recommend it, because I did give Becky and the select board a heads up maybe last week, if not 2 weeks ago, saying that we were going to be meeting tonight and, potentially making a recommendation to get it on the town warrant. And if we do, we just have to sort of grab the language and sort of get it to them relatively promptly. I think it was last week was the first time they reviewed the warrant, and they got everything. So the window for adding things starts closing. But I think we're still okay. So I get what, before we vote, why don't we just sort of check in a bit and see what everyone thinks, how it went? Go ahead.
it seems to me that the people who were there were really interested and had good questions and well, we don't know, one didn't say anything, but 4 people out of a town of. But I mean, that speaks to our concern at the beginning. How much is new building or major renovation going to affect people in town?
I mean, I can say that the video it's up on YouTube now,
Yeah.
and it has 13 views. So even more people have watched it after the fact. So
But that's telling. That's
exciting.
good information. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I thought the presentation was quite good.
Yep.
It was really well put together, delivered, tailored to our interests and perspective. There were two tensions, I guess, or just reading the questions that came up, and one was around cost concerns, and which I think you always have to take seriously. In general, it costs more to build than it does to buy an existing home. So, I do wonder, just as a practical matter, how to think about that question. But the other one was this question of making people put stuff into their houses that they don't want. I thought that was an interesting perspective, if you will. It's kind of an argument against any kind of building code at some level, I think. So I'm not entirely sure how to take that feedback, but it was there. So maybe something that we would need to, or at least think about how to address that concern, if you will.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this point of like, houses being built today lasting 100 years. I mean, I think that's ultimately what it comes down to. It's not just your home. It's inherently an investment in the future. So that's kind of how I look at it. But yeah, I thought it was a great presentation. Just speaking about the information that was provided, I found it hugely interesting and useful.
Yeah. I agree. It was a very good presentation. I think the two things that were interesting, like I think you named the tension points. Another one was, the issue of affordable housing, so which is just the whole bundle of issues. But, if people are on board with affordable housing, the initial hit is, oh, you're making the houses more important. And, I think, I'm forgetting, not Chris, but the other guy's name. But, his point was it makes it more affordable to live in because your operating costs are less. So, I mean, that was helpful. I think my bigger point or observation though is like, it always comes down to how much people bundle their issue versus actually pay attention to the details. So like the thing, Nate, about putting stuff in your house you don't want to. I mean, they made it really clear that because we're a green community, the difference between what we're required to do and what the stretch code would do is actually really minimal.
Yeah.
I think it's like, adding the conduit for solar. You don't have to put solar on, but if you're not paying attention to the details, you get caught up on the fact of, I don't have to do this. You're telling me I have to, and you don't look at actually like what that marginal increase is.
Yeah.
And then there's this terrific point about the health of the air in your house if you have a very tight envelope.
Yeah.
And we've heard that on this committee before, and the feeling that, well, if there's air exchange between the outside and the inside, then that's like probably better for your health. But what we heard was, if you build your house to code, that air will be healthier, because in order to build to code, you need to account for air exchange in a particular way, in a way that improves overall indoor air quality. So I thought it was hugely illuminating, because I wasn't sure what to think about that question of like the tightness of the envelope, and intuitively it makes sense. Like, oh, well, there's not air exchange, that air is going to accumulate particulates, which might be bad for my health, but it's built into the code that you must have measures that effectively address that problem. So it was just turned into one more argument for building to a strict code in the end, I thought.
That whole conversation with Melissa on that point was very interesting. So she's been told by whom, you can't do that, it's too tight and blah, blah, blah. But Michael, I think your point is one to sit on heavily, and that is that there is so little distinction between what's now in place and what this new stretch code would do. That the green and blue, if I remember correctly, table they showed what's there and what would get added. I mean, that was very clear. It wasn't just Michael's words assuring it's not going to cost much more. It's,
Right. Yeah, and I think, I mean, we can sort of pivot to if we want to go forward with it or not, but if we decided to, I think it would definitely be helpful to bring stuff to town meeting. Like I remember, I think sometimes we still do it, but when I was on school committee, we had to talk about like where the costs were, having a pie chart and showing where that stuff is. It just makes it real. And I think using the chart that they talked about and really trying to bring that home, because if you don't have that documentation in front of everybody, the conversation just can go off the rails.
right.
So,
That it is not going to cost that much more initially, and it's going to save you money in terms of maintenance over and living in it, which will accumulate. You don't see that up
Yeah.
front, but
yeah,
I
I think the
think-
only, I'm sorry, go ahead, Isaac.
No, I think what's really going to happen is it's going to push out house flippers and contractors coming in to buy derelict houses or houses that, because it's not going to be cost efficient for them or cost effective with the new policies. There's a guy that is renovating a house on Haskins Way that kind of stopped by, like he saw me and like I was walking back from the bus stop and he was like, I need to talk to you about this new code stuff, and like he's like kind of getting into me about like I need to understand it better because right now it's costing like it's adding 30% to my building cost and blah blah blah. And he's bought and flipped some properties in town, like for his family, but also for profit. So I mean that would kind of mitigate or that would kind of close that window. And then there are there's a couple of people that are building houses now. I don't know if more lot building will happen in the future, but a buddy of mine, Stuart, on the fire department, is building a house. He's well through the process, but then there's another guy that's moving to town that is has a lot that he's building on. So there is some new construction. It's not non-existent.
Right.
So I mean, these are just kind of my armchair observations.
That's interesting. I mean, historically, there hasn't been a lot of new building in town. And there's way back, there was a moratorium for a bunch of years. And I think, pre-muni fiber, we weren't attractive to move to. So I think it has shifted since we've got, Shutesbury net, which is what we predicted. Yeah, I think the way I see it, the issue is how much of a stink do we want to make and how much do we expect? It's sort of like,
Yeah.
There's always enough controversy in town. I know just from the 3 bylaws that are coming out of the planning board, they're potentially big discussion points, which means either could be a 4th one or it could not be, or people get worn down by the other ones and they don't care about this one. You never know how it's going to go. My sense, I think if we present it right, it's not a big deal. It's really just sort of getting ahead of it. And we could, I guess my other thing is, even if it was not approved, although it would be a bummer, it's an educational activity, and we could bring it back next year. There's no reason we couldn't.
The warm up.
Yeah,
Gets the ideas out there, gets the notions out there, and gets the conversation going.
so Gail, it sounds like you're.
I was just gonna say, that makes me sound like I think I'm gonna vote yes.
Nate, Isaac, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I'm not opposed. I mean, I think putting it out there for people to vote on is a good thing, right? Leave the decision in the hands of the people. And I think, much to your previous points, like it would be very helpful to kind of show current code and like just a small chart of like, here's what our code currently is what it would look like with the new stretch code. And if people look at it and see that it's not very different, they might go for it. But again, like Gail was saying, it's the start of a conversation, win, lose, or draw.
And have some dollar figures to go to it. So what does it mean to have this extra thing or this extra thing in terms of dollars?
What do you think?
So that increases my building cost by 30%, just sounds outrageous to me.
I think that was that was kind of anecdotal, and I think maybe that was specific to the insulation that he needed to put in, right? So that where he was spending X amount of dollars for insulating the home, he's spending 30% more to get it up to the code, and that's probably with the existing code, not the new code, right?
I was going to say, then that's the question. Then bringing up,
Yeah,
the
of course,
code.
of course,
yeah,
yeah, right.
But that's a good way to point to it.
Yeah.
Yep.
But again, it's to like, how do you make the argument to the person who's not living in the house, the person that's building to sell or buying to flip to sell? I think that would be the challenge. I don't know how much of that is happening in town, but
Unless they're town residents already, they're not going to be a town meeting. So
yeah, there you go.
They're not our audience.
Right. But maybe some of the people that are doing this are town residents. This guy that, I've spoken with is a town resident, and he has done this 3 times, I think.
Yeah, I think part of our role is to push. And, if people want to argue against a net zero climate future, that's their right. But I would like them to be on the record,
Yep.
Saying that.
Yep.
Honestly.
100%. And I feel like getting it out there to have the conversation, like if it doesn't go through, then we have action items to move forward, things to address in the future, constituencies to gain, arguments to be made and won.
Well, I got one more thing to say, and then we can vote.
Excuse me, the Amherst, it was on the Amherst warrant, right? Is that how they addressed it?
I'm not. Was
I
it?
guess could we crib language from?
Well, Nate said there's actually canned language on, I think it's the DOER site
Oh,
Yep.
excellent.
for a bylaw, so we could just look at that.
Not a problem. Okay.
And the only thing I was going to say, which I supported as well, we should vote on it to make it official. But I think one of the arguments that doesn't win the day is the one about we intellectually the fact that the house would be there for 100 years is good, but
Okay.
yeah, it's like most
Not on
people
my
are
dime.
not. Yeah, you're not investing in people you don't know who won't live in your house in 30, 40 years. That maybe you'll be dead. And it's sort of like the short-term argument with the flipper as well. It's sort of like, why do I care if it's going to be cheaper for the people moving into the house because it costs more to, you might lose some margin in your benefit.
That's exactly what beachfront developers in Miami are saying. They just need to turn a profit in 20 or 30 years, and they don't care if the building's underwater in 100.
Yep.
It's like a very sad thing, but it is true.
Yep.
They
Yeah.
don't care.
So someone want to make a motion?
Go ahead.
Okay, all right. I know you're ready to second, Isaac,
Yeah.
but I move to recommend to the select board that the specialized stretch code be added to a future town meeting warrant.
Like I
Second.
said, You want to say 2024 town warrant?
Yeah,
I,
why
it
not?
wouldn't be this next one, right? But
Why
or
not?
would
No, it could be. It
it could be? Oh, great. Yeah,
Let's
if
go
it's,
for
there's
it.
time, then my motion is getting longer by the second, but yes, the 2024 town warrant.
Cool.
Excellent.
Yeah. Isaac, you want a second?
I think Gail seconded.
I did.
Okay, I'll say, okay, cool.
He's taking
So-
minutes.
Okay. Any other conversation? Okay, we'll do the roll call. Gail,
Yes, I.
Nate,
I
Isaac,
Aye.
and I'm an aye, so it's unanimous. So I will I think, so I'm gonna be out of commission today through Friday. So I can email Becky and let her know that we decided that. I'm wondering, Nate, do you have the ability to sort of find that canned language and either send it directly to Becky or send it to me and I'll get it to her on by the weekend?
yes.
Okay, cool, great.
And
So
thank
I'll-
you, Nate, for having started this whole thing. Set it
Yeah.
up and did the research and got the meeting going.
Yeah, this has been a great process.
Well done.
I think we're, we don't have a big audience at our meetings, but we do have a good process of sort of discussing and then creating opportunities for input and things. So maybe this will go just the way of the CCA. That would be pretty cool.
Just a quick clarification question. So Nate will find the language and will he send it to Becky directly or will send it to you, Michael, and you will send it to Becky?
Let's see, let me just see when the next select board meeting is, because I think that makes the difference. So select board met. Oh, they're meeting next Tuesday. So I think, Nate, if you want to send it to Becky directly, that's the only way it's going to get on their agenda. So, and just CC me so I have a copy, but I'll tell her right after you get off.
I will do that. And if it turns out to be the case that the text that I identify might benefit from some wordsmithing, can I tweak it, send it around for a 24-hour turnaround, 48-hour turnaround, and then send it along?
It says
Yeah, I
to be
mean,
okayed by legal anyway, doesn't it?
yeah, I think my sense is at this point, it's really, there's a lot of things that'll get tweaked subsequently.
Gotcha.
It's mostly getting our foot in the door and getting on the warrant.
Okay, great.
So I think you can even just tell Becky, this is, from DOER, if we can get it on there, we'll make sure that it's appropriate, and most likely Donna will look at it.
Okay.
So, cool. So we only got two more things on our agenda. The next one is the Climate Leaders Communities Program, which Chris asked us to consider. And I briefly looked at it. It's another grant program. It's sort of like how Green Communities started. They created Green Communities and people opted in, and then, so I don't think the doors are gonna hit us if we, it's not shutting the door if we don't walk through it right now. So I think we can wait and deal with this stuff and then sort of evaluate. Is my personal 2 cents, just because we got other things going on. But does anyone else have a strong opinion?
I have a couple of slides I can share.
Oh, go for it.
Yeah, did anybody else go to the
Oh, that's right. I asked you to go to the thing. Thank you.
yeah, I went to the thing.
Yeah,
Thing.
silly me. I'm making this opinion and I didn't even hear the official presentation.
No
So-
worries. But was I the only one that attended the webinar? All right,
From
let's
us.
see if I got this.
What'd you think of
It's,
it?
very interesting. So I wonder, this might be the best way to do it. Does that look terrible or?
Yes.
Looks terrible. Okay, good.
Sorry.
I will tell you to keep working on it.
I think
here.
if you go into presenter mode, it'll eliminate the.
It will. I'll lose my notes. So
Hmm.
what I'm going to do is, if this is acceptable,
Yep.
Yes.
I think I'll do it
Hmm.
like this. So uh, terrific. Yeah. So what the program does, it supplies a source of grant funding, basically. So
That's good.
yeah, I'm just moving things around. Um, so there's a wide array of expenses that
Mm.
forward decarbonization, for which you can get grants, and that includes studying and
Yeah.
designing, which is something that's been kind of an issue for us, like strategically how to think about um, getting past that initial phase, like coming up with the money for the study, for the design, for the thing that we want. So the Climate Leader Community Program seems to address that. You can use it for study design, construction, management services, um, policy development, which I thought that was quite interesting. I think for a town of our size, mostly we're um, borrowing templates, boilerplate stuff, but yeah, there's this wide array of benefits that being a climate leader community would potentially provide.
And look at that bottom one.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Do we get t-shirts?
Maybe.
Hugs, tote bags.
So that's the carrot.
Yep.
But in order to be a climate leader community, you have to be a green community, which we are. You have to have a local body on clean energy, which we are. And then you have to do these 4 other things. You have to develop a municipal decarbonization roadmap
Wow.
that includes a commitment to eliminating on-site fossil fuel use by 2050. And that applies only to municipal buildings and operations.
Yeah, but
So it's the
that's
buildings, but it's also town-owned vehicles, right? So you will adopt a zero-emission vehicle policy. And
What's
I've
that
looked
mean,
at
vehicle first?
Sorry?
When it says zero emission vehicle first policy, what does that mean?
Right, so that's the first choice. I think that's the intention of the wording, is that it's not your second choice.
Well, I guess the clarification question on that, if what if it's not a possibility? I'm not aware of a fire engine that or or a tanker that would fit the bill.
That's right.
Some of the heavier machinery for the DPW, I don't know either. Um,
There's an exemption.
Okay.
So there's a pound, I think it's like anything 8,000 pounds and more. And there's specific exemptions for um, emergency response vehicles, fire trucks, and I think some other things. So I think I'll mention this. Now, I don't know if I have this in the presentation, but there is a model zero vehicle emission policy that's part of the website for this program.
wow.
So one of the things that I wanted to flag is that, like, even if you don't go all in, to being a climate leader community, there's still aspects of the program that I think would be of interest to us.
Mhm.
That we might be able to or should look at and maybe even consider uh, um, doing. So, and when I read that, there was like, Isaac, this specific carve out for the heavier vehicles. So that is what you need to do to be eligible. And much in the same way as the building code, the specialized stretch code is the specialized code plus a couple of things. Another way to think about being a climate leader community is you're a green community, and then you do these like 3 additional things, one of which is adopting the specialized stretch code.
Yeah. To be a
So
greener community.
it's another reason to put that on the agenda, the specialized stretch code.
I mean, is there sorry to interrupt, but is there a way to kind of add some information about this possibility into the conversation about, like not just the benefit to our community, but this would also, in the adopting a stretch code conversation in the town warrant, to say that if we do adopt this, this would also position us to be able to access grant funds that would allow, us to access, to be eligible or viable for other grants that would help our community.
Good point.
Yeah,
I think like that is absolutely a benefit to. There's a little bit of a bait and switch though, because the money is largely going into municipal buildings. That's so when you develop this municipal decarbonization roadmap, what you're committing to is decarbonizing the municipally owned infrastructure. Now there are going to be benefits to the community for that, but that specialized stretch code, the rubber really meets the road with the individual and their 1,000 square foot addition. And I don't know that the grants that would be available to us through this program, would benefit that individual.
But I think we could say that it would benefit the town and to moving forward, in our pursuit to decarbonize the municipal infrastructure and the municipal buildings.
Absolutely.
And potentially reduce costs that are in our budget.
100%.
Good. Yep.
yeah.
That is all good stuff.
Let me
I
go
agree with
back
that.
to something you said earlier, please, Nate, and that is about the vehicles.
Yeah.
Were we in a conversation with the select board on devising a fossil fuel-free vehicle when possible?
Yeah, wasn't that was the non-fossil fuel purchasing protocol, right?
Right.
That Michael
Right.
And that would line up with,
yeah.
Yeah, and it got raised, I don't know if you remember last year at town meeting, I raised that in terms of, I think it was the replacement vehicle for the fire chief perhaps. And, there was one that was, the police car was gonna be hybrid, but I think the fire chief was like an SUV or something, it was just gonna be, gas. So it's surfaced. And I know talking to the police chief, she was interested in doing hybrid stuff. I mean, looking at this, my initial uninformed gut reaction, it sort of seems like it was accurate, which is like, if we can move forward the stretch code, and it doesn't hurt to sort of add Isaac's argument to it.
right,
But if we don't get that, then we got to revisit it and bring it back next year. But if we get it, then we got one more building block.
right.
And I mean, the roadmap is a heavyish, I mean, it's not a huge lift, but it's a lot of engagement. We have to get buy-in into it and that stuff. And compared to that, the vehicle policy is probably a little bit easier, but I think it might be for next year, or it could be a 2-year thing. I mean, I think they're rolling this out. Just watching how they did MVP and they did green communities, like they roll these things out. The other thing I'll just say is, and I don't know if they said it in the webinar, Nate, but in all likelihood, these are going to be competitive grants. And so small rural towns usually get screwed in terms of the competitive grant stuff, because we don't have the staff to sort of do the grants and or do some of the fundamental front end stuff. So
Hmm.
it's not to say we shouldn't participate. I think it's just that we should go in knowing that if it takes us a year or two, we're still going to be, it's tempting to say, oh, we can get all this money for it, but it's, I mean, with MVP, like Leverett got $1 million for, this big conduit pipe on Leverett Road that they had to replace. Like that, it's huge for their budget. So it does happen. But like in Shutesbury with our MVP stuff, we got the planning grant that I wrote, but we have yet to get an action grant. So it's
Yeah.
not assured is the thing.
Well, you don't get 100% of the things you don't try for.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we shouldn't do it.
Of course, but it's looking at it realistically, understood
Yeah.
100%. And I feel like creating the municipal decarbonization roadmap, I mean, the first action item like that Gail has been talking about with, the like looking at the electrical usage and estimates of what we need to do, like we're starting the ball rolling already. Like this is
Yeah.
not, yeah. So it's
Yeah,
just
I agree
about,
with you.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just a matter of we can't jump into it now because we don't have the things checked off. And so just sort of
course.
practicality wise, I can think like if we, after town meeting, say, okay, let's map this out, and then in the fall, figure out like what's the game plan for moving this forward. Or, make a presentation to the select board, say in June, and say, this is what we're planning on doing. Are you guys good with that? And then figure out how to advance it. Because this lays out our work. I mean, look, I think, Isaac, to your point, this is the stuff we're trying to do anyway. It's just making it happen. Gail?
I think also I don't know what the politics of this are, but if we as a committee can join with FERCog in grant writing and not have it go through the town administrator. If we are somehow authorized, or whatever the proper word is, to work with FERCog. I know the Open Space Committee worked with FERCog to get our open space plan passed.
Yeah.
So why shouldn't we be able to do it as a committee with FERCog, and then we can, that'll be our grant writer.
Yeah, the grant writing thing is always, I don't think we need permission from the select board. I mean, like when I wrote the planning grant for MVP, I told them I was doing it, but
Oh, okay,
there's many committees who just write on their own, and
okay.
having lived in the nonprofit space forever and been a grant writer, I got grant writing down, I would
Okay.
say. So it's.
But my
and,
bet is that FERCog has templates for this.
I bet they don't yet, but they will
have,
because,
yeah. Well, we can
yeah.
help them develop them.
Yeah, and it's just I think it's a matter of, I mean, they don't have big capacity. I mean, I'm working them on digital equity stuff, and they're doing they're going to do digital equity planning for Shutesbury, and I think Leverett, and they've just did it for a whole bunch of other little towns. But they're pretty thin.
Okay.
So
that's down the road anyway. So
yeah, I mean, I think they were helpful in terms of like the plan stuff and the open space plan and the MVP plan, like that kind of thing, because they know the component parts. But I would say it seems like we should consider having this be our roadmap of like, okay, what next year looks like, and start out in June.
Yep.
So there's like just a couple more useful nuggets, and the first one is, if we were interested in heading down this path, we would write a letter that commits us to be a climate leader in the next year, like within a year. And we would be assigned a consultant to develop the roadmap.
Really?
Yeah, and what we would do is probably use, they mentioned that you can do a desk review and use your mass energy account information to like as like your primary input to that that roadmap. So I thought that was like really useful and helpful. It focuses on buildings, but vehicles are, part of the program. And we would work with Chris Mason on this, with
But all-
questions.
All those fuel questions are also on Mass EI. I just selected the electricity, but they're
Mhm.
whole categories of vehicular use and oil furnace use and, so
Yeah.
forth. So
The whole point is to get us on a glide path towards decarbonization by
right,
2030,
2050, yep.
Have specific goals, and it just gets the town in a framework and decision structure for getting us.
So I'm
What
sorry,
do we have to
Nate.
promise to make the commitment in that letter?
I don't know how binding it is, and I mean, what could it possibly be? But that would be a follow-up question, like what needs to be in that letter, and what are we really committing ourselves to
Yeah.
by, writing that letter,
Yeah.
if you will. So.
Sorry, Isaac, I interrupted you.
No, it's all right. Just let me. Well, it was. So we would be assigned. Like, what was the term you used to help us?
Consultants
Consultant. Okay, thank you.
to develop the decarbonization roadmap.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the charge of the committee.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of timing, like, I mean, finding out about the letter, and then, because I think the select board would have to be the one who signs off on the letter, so it's a matter of, part of the pitch would be, we want to embark on this. The first step is getting a letter signed by the select board, and then I gotta imagine that, a year is aspirational, that, for a lot of towns, they're not gonna hit those, but, because if you're well down the road, they're not gonna cut you off.
Yeah.
I think that they want participation.
Yeah, I think also whether or not the specialized stretch code adoption passes at the town meeting, like I think that might be a good benchmark. If it does pass, maybe we do seriously consider writing the letter to get us on track and get the liaison or get the consultant. But let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. If we don't get the stretch code approved, then I like the idea of using these points moving forward to see, like, getting all the information for what needs to be in the letter, what are the commitments, and just trying to get back on the horse with specialized stretch code, finding how to strengthen our arguments and try to reach the community and get other things in line. So it's an easier, lighter lift when we finally do get the stretch code adopted.
Makes sense. Nate, can you email us all this? Unless you did and I missed it.
Yeah, I can send you these slides, but I pulled them right off of the DOER website on the client leader program.
Okay,
But
okay.
I will get that, and then I'll check to see if there's a recorded video available yet of the presentation. So as well.
So I would say, I mean, we could put it on next month's agenda just to report back on stuff if you were to find it, and then in May we can just, we'll know about the town meeting vote. So we can sort of figure out what our path is, to Isaac's point. Do we have one check mark checked off, or whatever the strategy is, we'll have more insight in May. So if that works,
We'll have our own roadmap.
yeah, it's sort of cool.
This is great, Nate. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So all we got is our, that was a great conversation. Thank you. So we got our minutes, which we have to do. And if you guys have the dates in front of me, I just have to go to my email to find them.
January 9th.
Okay. You want to make a motion, Gail?
I move to accept the minutes of the January 9th meeting as amended.
I second.
Great. Any other discussion? Okay. Gail, how do you vote?
Yes, aye.
Isaac?
Aye.
Nate?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Okay, approved unanimously. And what's the second date?
February
yours.
6th.
February 6th. Okay, who wants to move on that one?
So I'll move to approve the meeting minutes from our February 6th meeting
Second,
as
Great.
circulated.
Great. Any other discussion?
I did
Here.
add respectfully submitted Nate Hurd to that, to the minutes you sent.
As amended.
It's important that the note taker name be on those minutes.
Cool, great. So hearing no further discussion. Gail, how do you vote?
Aye.
Nate?
Aye.
Isaac?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Okay, unanimously approved.
Oh, we're
So,
good.
yeah. Any other things we want to talk about before we adjourn? This was a great discussion.
I just like this team. I gotta tell you, it feels like, we're all in the same. Yeah, this is good.
Yeah, I will say actually to that point, I think, was it, Gail, were was it you and I who sort of encouraged Keith Hasty to come to a meeting?
No.
Someone, I'm trying to remember. I remember, so Keith is an associate member of the planning board, and there was some conversation I was on, and I said, you should come to ECAC and check it out. And he said he was gonna, but he didn't show up. But I think part of, we can be 7. And, appointments can happen anytime, but the select board does it towards the end of the year so that they, terms begin on July 1st. So if in conversations with people, there's, names that, at some point, I'm guessing in the next month or so, Becky will probably reach out to the committees and say, do you have any names and what do you want to do? And, like we did last year, we just have to, reaffirm that we want to do it. And then if we have additional people, so just ponder that. Well, how about a motion to adjourn?
We need a next meeting date.
Oh, geez.
Good point.
Mark Cookie. Okay, let's see. What do we got? So we are on the 19th. And
I'll be out of town on the 16th
okay.
family vacation, but
Oh,
hockey
that's
will be
right.
over, so I can meet in the evenings.
Well, I will be out on the 23rd because it's Passover and I'll be in New York. So we could do the 9th if we're keeping Tuesdays. Does the 9th work?
It does.
Yeah.
When is the select board meeting?
5:30.
Oh, right. So now if we're on to the 7 o'clock time, yeah. Okay.
Okay, so we could do, we'll do 7 o'clock.
Oh, we're doing 7 o'clock on that Tuesday?
I don't know.
I
Isaac,
could. Yeah.
Is that good or bad for you, Isaac?
I mean, my wife has a Tuesday, like a weekly Tuesday night craft night that usually starts around 8:30. So that gets a little tight, but again, she's very accommodating and it's only once a month, but I try to not rankle things as much as possible. So
that makes sense. Well, the only reason we care about the select board is if we wanted to go to the meeting. I would say we can just keep it at 5. And because select board goes till 6:30, if we ended up that we wanted to go to the meeting, we could just sort of ask Becky to be on their agenda, like the 6:30 time and sort of wrap up or smush into theirs. But I don't know necessarily. I just don't think anything's going to pop up between now and town meeting in terms of like CCA and stuff. It'd be nice if it did, but why don't we just keep it at 5 and then we'll see what happens. We can always juggle it if need be. Worst comes to worst, we can.
Does that work for you, Isaac?
oh yeah, 5 o'clock is perfect. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate you
Hey.
guys' consideration.
Okay.
Okay, So 5 PM on April 9th is our next meeting. Sweet. Okie dokie. Anything else I forgot to do?
Adjourn the meeting.
Who wants to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Okay,
I'll
second?
second.
Okay. Okay. Let's do a roll call. Nate, how do you vote?
Hi.
Gail,
Aye.
Isaac,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. Okie dokie. Great meeting you guys. Have a good evening.
You too.
See ya.
Say, Gail, quickly, where, like at the beginning or the end, do you say who's taking the minutes?
The next time?
At the
Yeah,
end.
at the end. Okay,
No,
meeting.
no, no,
okay.
wait. No, no, wait.
Oh,
Ah,
not
on the-
respectfully.
Oh, in the actual form of the ECAC minutes for submission.
Okay, where, are you asking who's gonna take minutes next time? Or are you
No,
asking-
I'm asking. Well, I guess we should figure out who's taking it next time.
And I said
Gail
I'd do it.
Gillis.
Okay,
And
Gail.
that was posted at the beginning of the meeting,
Okay, you post at the beginning of the meeting who's taking minutes. Okay, great.
next time, right?
All right.
Right after the public thing, the
Public comment?
Yep.
next,
Okay.
next meeting. And then at the very bottom, at the end, respectfully submitted, comma, your name. That's just
Okay.
the standard form for minutes.
Okay, thank you.
So the posterity will look favorably on you when they read it.
Yeah, hopefully. All right. All right. I'll submit them shortly. Thank you, guys.
Okay.